It's the Daily Talk Show, episode 562.
Belinda Wall, welcome back.
Thanks, guys.
Need an update because you were in the crowd at Ep 500.
I was. Such a great night.
I'm so glad.
And I was a winner chicken dinner.
I'm so glad you won the pour over.
Sorry, winner Nando's chicken dinner.
yeah, very good.
Yeah, there's Nando's there.
Yeah.
How is it, the pour over?
It's called an AeroPress.
AeroPress.
Is it a pour over?
No, it's different.
It's an AeroPress.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Looks like a big syringe.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to be honest.
Okay.
Right. Firstly, I was thrilled because I've never won something like that. That was amazing. Secondly, my partner Jordan was sitting next to me. He also won.
Did he?
Oh, perfect.
Okay, so he came home with a $50 Nando's voucher.
Yeah, great.
Amazing.
Not sure if he's used it yet. But yeah, anyway, have to quiz that one.
It's definitely a time of year, by the way, where vouchers. So Brie and I house sat for someone. They gave us a $200 chin voucher.
Yeah.
Which we have to use this year.
We used one on Friday. We went to Marion. We had one from Christmas last year.
You got to get into it. But the other interesting thing on this point very quickly is new consumer
laws. The
laws.
legislation. Yeah. They have.
So what?
You can
3
push
years.
back.
So if it's after, I think, November 1st, if you got your voucher after November 1st, retail shops and restaurants and things, unless they're like, there's a couple of caveats around if it's super discounted or things like that, they have to give you 3 years, even if the expiry date has before that.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
Good to know, everyone, this time of year.
Especially if you hate admin.
Don't panic.
You got to get...
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I bought my brother a double pass to the movies, gold class, never used it, and that was too long ago. So I'm kind of overbuying people anything to do with a voucher.
at all.
I could actually see
Just buying presents.
I could see an app or a business model in here whereby, you get a voucher, you scan your voucher, and then it automatically gives you calendar reminders.
Oh, that's a good idea. Or maybe you could even do swapsies. So even
there
within
is
it, you can say, if it is, how about this?
There is actually a bunch of these apps.
Okay.
Oh, thanks.
A bunch of these
Thanks.
businesses.
We thought we were
No, because it was like, I think, it's exactly, I want to sell it off. If I got $100, I'll sell it.
It's like scalping.
Someone's got $50 for this and they get $100 of value.
Really great.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
And
Quite
so
hard.
the AeroPress.
Okay. So I was a warm night. I remember we were driving home. Great event. Fabulous celebrations.
I'm worried where this is going, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. And we were driving home. It's quite a big box, the AeroPress was. And so the conversation was, okay, firstly, we live in a townhouse, just my partner and I, and there's not much room. Okay, there's not much room to buy more stuff.
I think you're overstating how big the fucking AeroPress is.
It's big. No,
are you in a miniature house? How small is your house? Are you in the Fitzroy Gardens?
Okay, I'm revealing my type A-isms here. However, we both like coffee.
Sure. You've re-gifted
We already
it, haven't you?
We have not.
Okay.
We have a pod machine. We have a percolator. We have
That's why you got no room. You got
one
too
of
many fucking
these.
coffee
Yeah, we've got a one of those beautiful thermos ones that you can brew coffee and sit it in for a long time. It's like anyway, and then we've got this other bubble percolator thing. How to describe it? It looks like a
Drip coffee? Is that for drip coffee?
Is it
Kinda,
like
yeah.
the US
Yeah.
style, like go to a diner type of thing?
It's close to that. Looks like one of those hourglass timers.
What brand
but
is
a
it?
big-
Like a Breville or something, or you don't know?
No, definitely
Okay.
not. Breville was given as a gift as well.
Okay, sure.
Anyway, so we've got quite a lot of coffee apparatuses. So what are we going to do with this AeroPress? When is it going to get used?
Camping, I think I mentioned that. Like
You
it's
did.
a perfect.
You did. Anyway, we decided this would be great for the beach house.
Oh, great.
How highbrow does that sound?
I said camping.
And I'll put the over summer as in because it's a coffee moment thing. It's like, okay, it's going to take a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
So, and not just for us, because it's not our beach house, let's be honest, it's a family beach house. So it's going to the beach this summer and it's going to be used for when people want to take a good hour to make their coffee, sit there, read the paper. So I'll do an Insta story, guys.
Yeah,
yeah,
great.
great.
At that moment at the beach house. That's
AU
the long
79, we
answer.
appreciate it.
That's the long answer.
I'm glad it didn't get re-gifted.
But the definitely did not get re-gifted. We did discuss it. No, we didn't at all. The beautiful gold straws have not been used yet.
no slurp.
I think
Maybe give it to your niece.
I'd
I'd
Disco.
be okay if you re-gifted the gold straw because I think it's
I
spreading the
don't want
message.
to, but it's something that I'm like, they look great.
Yeah.
And it has a little straw cleaner. I think there's about 3 different kind of straws in there.
Yeah.
But kids love them. Like it's a trendy thing to have.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll tell you just quickly, when I was working at a radio station, I got
Would you guys have used your straws?
No, this is Melbourne.
Would we have used?
Would
our
you have
straw?
used a straw yet?
A gold straw?
Like, is it a bad effort that I haven't used the straw?
I would find a reason. Yeah, I think I'd probably turn my coffee. Like I'd probably put in my coffee cup. But the other thing too is
We have tried the AeroPress.
okay.
We have tried it. I'm just letting you know.
Okay.
No, I think I saw you did a Insta story on that.
I did.
Which I appreciate.
That's great.
But the problem I think with the straw, which my mum's a dental nurse and she gets really into these nuances, like when lemon water was the big thing, Miranda Kerr was doing that. She's like the acidity in your teeth,
Apple cider vinegar.
all these things are rotting your teeth. I have a feeling metal straws. Ding a ding a ding a ding. You're actually going to potentially. Can you look that up? 97.
But then again, wouldn't she be happy that you're not putting the caffeine on your teeth?
I reckon should say traditional plastic. I think Lynn's definitely
Just drink
loves-
from a cup.
Yeah, drink from a
Drink
cup.
from a cup.
Anything on there? 97 about teeth and metal straws.
I mean, just people hurting themselves. You
Injuries.
can imagine. I mean, people probably choked
Kids
on.
in the car?
Yeah.
Oh, stop suddenly.
running with a straw. Like Bodie runs with a spoon in his mouth. I have to just constantly tell him.
You're not going to give Bodie a gold-plated straw, are you?
Well, he's not worth it. I don't think it's gold plated. I think it's just gold
Rose
in
gold.
colour.
Anything
Yeah,
on there?
rose colour.
97. No?
I mean, there's an anecdote from a bloke on Twitter who said
Perfect.
he chipped his tooth from using a metal straw. About a third of his front tooth.
Oh, that's
enough for me.
expensive.
I'm not prepared to take the risk.
No, I got given a expensive coffee machine at the radio station. The host of the show didn't want it. I was like, "Who wants this?" And I just put my hand up, got it. It's amazing. It was $300+. I took it to Christmas and we were doing Bad Santa. This was a few years back.
How fun.
And I put it in, and so everyone's fighting to get this thing.
Well, it was only a $45 limit or something, wasn't it?
What else
And
was
so-
on
yeah.
the Bad Santa?
Oh, I mean, you get like classic scratchies or like tickets, Tats Lotto tickets. So it's like, imagine if you actually won $1 million from Bad Santa. So I like the Tats Lotto tickets. I don't want the other shit. But there's a lot of crap because it ends up being $40 limit, $45 limit.
I was having this conversation with my sisters the other day. There's nothing worse than those moments where you're walking through a shopping centre around Christmas time and you have that feeling of, oh my God, the clock's ticking. I don't know what to get. I've just got to get something.
Yeah.
That's awful feeling. It's just that
That's when discounts get bought.
sake. Buy for, it's just gross. And you look around and you see everyone else just mindlessly going, that'll do. That'll do. Like,
I do that on Amazon. Like I do it all online, but it's very much like, thinking about, okay, what is...
it's semi-panic. Got to get it. $40 limit. That'll do. And you know what? If I don't get it right, they can take it back.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, you're across branding, and I want to get your thoughts on this. Chemist Warehouse recently did a 30% off frenzy for Xmas, and they got like picture shitty black plastic bags, and they've put them up on and used tape and written.
Gaffer.
It was like gaffer, and it just looked so shit. It looked like it was
Going into liquidation.
exactly. But I thought, like, oh my
Is
God.
that a tactic?
And I thought, is it a tactic? Because it makes you think sale. There's
Urgency.
just crap. There's like, we need to get this sale going. Come in, guys. We're going to run out of stock. But I was thinking, do you think it's a play around, make it look shit on purpose to sort of the old school sale, like you're closing down that style?
Oh my goodness.
What do you reckon?
It wouldn't surprise me. I would say that they have quite loose guidelines around their approach to discounting and pushing through stock. Because I was in Chemist Warehouse the other day and I did see, the volume of stock that they've got carrying at any one moment in time is massive. And they
They're a
also
warehouse.
they love the tags.
Oh, yeah.
So everything looks like it's on sale.
Yeah.
I don't know. The garbage bag thing's pretty extreme.
Yeah, they've taken it to the next level.
JB Hi-Fi does it. It feels like it appeals to the Gronk. Because if you think about it's like EB Games. 97, I feel like you would have used EB Games back in the day.
Yeah, I loved EB games. Just
What
all
was
the
one of
hair.
the things about EB Games that you'd always notice?
All the stickers. They've got all like the sort of like triangle shaped sort of stickers, and they stick them up at the front of the entrance when you walk in, and it's like 20% off PS3 games or something like that. It's great.
JB is big for it as well. Like there's all the...
Done it again.
Yeah.
Sales frenzy. Like, yeah, you're right. Like plastering it everywhere makes you, it builds like, I need to get a bit of that.
That urgency. I think What I have noticed is that, you don't even have to be around Boxing Day time. The pre-Christmas discounts and the offers and the sales, the volume of discounting and specials and sales that hit your inbox daily through every day of December is extreme. You almost feel, and I have a birthday in December as well. So then you get all the whole, 10% off, $20 voucher, you got to use this before. And then I get to a state where I'm like, am I missing out on opportunities here? It really screws with your buyer psychology. And it really does push. But I feel like back in the day there used to be this whole anticipation around Boxing Day. Retailers and brands are just discounting all over the shop now. I feel like the entire Christmas shopping period
Black
is just
Friday.
discounted.
It sort of starts at Black Friday and just sort of like Black Friday is now an entire week. And,
and also what was the difference between Black Friday and Cyber Monday?
Yeah, well, there was we were talking to our mate Rob from Quadlock, and they do these phone cases, and the amount of selling they do around that time. But they're so strategic around it, where it's like it starts, I think, even before the Friday, and they have a slightly high unsubscribe rate, but they're doing they'll do 4 emails in that time, and they actually still get on the Monday evening, the final time people can get it, people are still buying product.
Yeah, it's huge.
When you're working at Two Times You,
fascinating.
In a meeting where you're with the marketing team, you were the marketing person, but with the wider team, are you actually thinking ahead
100%.
and going, how can we not manipulate, but what are the tactics here?
Oh, absolutely.
To convert to sales.
It's interesting because when I was in that role, our head of e-coms, so this was, 6 years ago, our head of, 5 to 7 years ago when I was actually in amongst it, our head of e-coms had actually come, or he's a Californian, so he'd come from the States, and he was instrumental in kind of pushing for Black Friday discounts and Cyber Monday and so forth. And then at that point in time was very new in Australia. Everyone's like, what are you talking about, this Black Friday thing? Firstly, we weren't a discounting brand. So we always had to put together a very strong case for discounting, and it was very limited, but you do have to forward plan. So you sit down, it's not just a decision based on marketing. So you sit down with your planners and your forecasters and you look at, okay, what stock levels do we have? What stock do we need to push through and get rid of in time, ahead of summer? So it's very much a roundtable conversation between marketing, e-coms, planning, head of sales, etc. So it's a highly strategic decision, and you generally have to plan, months out.
Going from a business that doesn't discount to one that does, that seems like a big decision, big move.
Yeah,
from a brand side especially.
Brand side,
100%.
Yeah.
And we rarely did. So we always erred towards things like gift with purchase or more like setting up competition style incentives, more value add as a part of the strategy as opposed to, discounting. It was very rare. We'd probably discount maybe once or twice a year.
Is there any brand that doesn't discount these days?
I think like premium brands definitely.
You wouldn't get like a Tiffany's discounting, come in 25% off diamonds.
I met a bloke on the street. I bought my wife's ring and it was Tiffany's. It was discounted. I'm joking.
No, but there's even Hey Tiger, Bree works as the marketing director there, and they're big on, it's the gift with purchase stuff.
Or bundles, or, for Christmas you could, exactly. So you're incentivizing certain packages or bundles, and there's a way of doing it that's not discount focused.
Is it a brand play for premium? Is that what the premium brands don't discount? Is that
absolutely.
Is that what you think?
Yeah. I mean, that's the strategy. You don't want to cheapen the value of the product that you're trying to push. So it is a you're not competing on price. That's the whole idea of a premium brand or a high price point brand. Yeah.
Woolen prints, like these merino t-shirts that I always wear, they never discount, but they do the thing of buy over $200 and get a free pair of socks.
Yeah.
And so, it's an interesting...
which those socks probably just would have been made for that promotion.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think that's also... So, we would plan quite far in advance for certain promotions. For example, it might be the start of the New Year's, very big time for fitness industry, New Year's resolutions, et cetera, et cetera. So what product are we going to make to throw into the bundle? You know, was it a sweat towel? Was it a drink bottle? Or was it going to be limited edition? Or we're just going to use stock that's not moving, all that kind of stuff.
I mean, a lot of this stuff's becoming more known to the consumer.
Absolutely.
But we still don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
No, I get the socks.
Yep.
I got the socks.
Yep.
But the thing is, I guess you're priming. There is a lot of retailers now that have primed their audience or their customer to only buy on sale.
Yep.
So, for instance, like my mum shops at Suzanne's, and she will only ever. She's playing this game of when it's on discount, and then every time she spends a certain amount, she gets like a $20 gift.
Country Road have perfected that model with the whole spend and save.
Yeah.
And they reframed that entire sort of program.
Is it like a loyalty program now?
Yeah. So it was probably about 2 years ago now. I think they restructured it. And it was blowing my mind when they did it, because in terms of the back end of that, it just would have been a complete head fuck of a digital transformation. But most leading retailers now have a loyalty program in place that's quite evolved and completely, beautifully marries in all their touch points. They have that spend and save model, but then it's also it's kind of like a Qantas frequent flyer model as well. So you've got like a status. So it's a gold, silver, bronze, or what have you, or platinum, and it tells you frequently like what you're up to. Or you only have to spend another $30 by this date to go on or to retain this status. They send you little perks now and then. So I think on Sunday, speaking to birthday perks and so forth, I think it was Sunday morning, I'm like, oh, there's a spend and saves ending tonight, plus I've got $30 birthday credit. Really should get there. Oh God, no, hang on. I'm there. It was 5:45 on Sunday night. I'm like, surely I've got to get something. I've got to. And then also you leave, and I also felt a bit dirty when I left with two things, just going, did I actually need those things?
Is it the linen shirt you're wearing? It's lovely.
It's not.
No.
It's very Country Road though.
Yeah, it does.
They do linen very well.
Oh yeah.
Do they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they do linen. Yeah. And
we've
denim as well.
We've been working with Country Road on some shoots,
And
and we're in there, and they've
ethical
got some
denim.
You've been
recycled
working
denim.
on the
Country-
shoots?
Yeah, we've been working with Country Road doing
Shame.
videos.
Not in their
video.
shoots.
Not I mean, they asked me, but I said nah. I've got another.
We're more of
alliance
a
with
rod and gun kind of
Brand.
brand. Yeah. No, I was talking to my mum. She was saying, I think it's with Woolworths where when you're at the register, it will tell you, say you're putting through your purchase. It was either Coles or Woolies, but it will say, hey, you've got 75 points or something. And with those points, you can get 2 sets of like drinking glasses. And so you just tell them, and then they bring it out or whatever.
But that's just it's frustrating. It's just that feeding that incredible consumerism and just absolute superfluous amount of shit in this world. Plastics and consumables and just FMCG.
Yeah. Well, what
just
about the
going
whole
everywhere.
little? What are those things called? The
Ooshies.
Ooshies. What? It's
Mate,
so
I tell
funny.
you what, they're just in my fucking car in the side bloody
But
mount.
do you know what it's
Oh,
equivalent
so
to?
annoying.
As a consumer, wouldn't you just go, do you know what? I would prefer
A plastic
I
bag.
prefer. Oh wow!
No, but
I
as
prefer
in-
5% off my bill.
Yeah,
like
but-
I don't want similar situation. I think it was last week. I got my a ding dong at the front door, and I got my annual.
I thought ding dong was an
hamper.
Ooshie. Did you think that was a
Ding dong,
ding dong.
annual hamper from my financial advisor.
Oh, really? I mean, you got to
Which
have
is
one.
really nice,
You got to
right?
have a financial
Yeah.
advisor to
Yeah.
get that. We don't.
Was it the beach house address or
For
which?
this is not right. For the business guys,
Yeah, okay,
it's not,
sure.
it's not
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
Not that indulgent, but it's funny because I had this conversation with a girlfriend 12 months ago who also runs a business, and she goes, "That's my worst time. I always look at it and think, I paid for that.
Yeah,
Like I paid for that hamper. Like the laugh's on them."
Yeah.
Then I opened it up, and it's always full of things that I can't eat. I've got a lot of
Yeah, sure.
intolerances.
Well, bring it over.
Champagne, don't drink that. But great for regifting.
Yeah,
so that,
really great.
perfect. Yeah, champagne can go to a Christmas party. That one can there. Yep. And there's always a dukkha there. There was always
dukkha, like
a
a-
rub.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's a
really?
meat
You can
rub.
sprinkle it on eggs. You could put it on meat.
Like lamb, like shredded lamb or
Are
something.
you
know,
allergic
there's
to that? Because
always
I wouldn't mind that.
You know, it's kind of like the promotional value adds of the fitness world, but those hamper fillers. Like, does anyone actually buy dukkha and rubs?
Yeah, I mean, it's is it a sample thing? Do you think he's got a client? Like, does the financial advisor have a client or something that's
They were really great
giving
products. No,
yeah.
I think that someone just walked around Leo's and pulled them together.
Leo's? Leo's is good. Like, that's high quality
Yeah.
stuff.
No, what's
They do
good
great-
stuff? It was great stuff.
What do you think of their orange juice?
Oh, so
97?
good.
Because 97 was in
yes.
it was in a
Yep.
sauna the
Yep.
other day, and you were
Yeah, down
talking.
at Q, then goes down to Leo's Q
Yeah.
and has his OJ. Yeah. Perfect afternoon.
It's the best orange juice you can get.
Well, they're very
And
good
you
at the
can-
smelling.
as soon as you walk
Yeah.
in, it's the smell. Great brand experience.
Do you think these are all touch points from brands to try and bring value or make you think about them more? Like, we're talking about the things we're onto. The financial guy,
Is that deeper emotional connection?
Yeah,
and
but-
association.
when we're onto it, like you're talking about the hamper, it's like, dude, save your cash. Like, I'd rather
But
save
now you're
money.
thinking,
my cash.
yes,
Yeah, but save your cash that you could have
Passed on to the customer.
you could have kept. Or
Yeah.
like if you didn't get the hamper, what would you feel? Would you be pissed?
or you
But
wouldn't
I
have been
didn't
thinking.
set up the expectation. So they did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
so-
now that you do have the expectation,
I won't lie. It was second week in December. I was like, it'll be due any day now. and then the doorbell rang, and it was two lovely girls delivering hand delivery. I said, "You guys doing the rounds of everyone today?" And said, "Yep."
Are they from the actual?
Yep.
Okay.
I
They
like
haven't
that.
outsourced it.
But you know what? Like when you're a consultant, you don't get a lot of Christmas party gifts.
Yeah.
You don't really get a Christmas party.
No.
So it's lovely.
No, I think that there is
Came in
something
handy.
nice. There is something nice in that. I always
Love
I
an
thi-
unexpected gift.
Yeah, and I would like to. I think one of my brand values is generosity. Not very good, but then combine that with the admin involved in getting gifts. It's actually
Yes.
quite a bit of friction for me
Oh, definitely.
because very generous, but don't get anything.
Yeah.
And so I would like to, in a future life, or potentially sometime in the future, maybe it's when I get my virtual assistant. I don't know.
I've
It would
heard
be
about
great.
this. Yep.
What do you think about the virtual assistant, by the way?
Do you know, it's one of those things I have heard a lot about, like murmurs about virtual assistants, but again, don't know anyone that has used one
Yeah, exactly.
directly
Have you had an assistant before
in my current business.
in life, in like through your
Oh.
whole existence? Have you ever had someone that you would be
No, I
able to-
wouldn't call them an assistant. Someone
worked
that
under
someone
you or
that I
whatever.
manage.
I would
and
call
that
him
work-
Jason.
No, I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
Not directly.
Because it would be nice, like
Because I would say yeah.
The-
Is
the-
assistant? Are you allowed to even use that term anymore?
Yeah,
Definitely,
PA,
yeah.
personal assistant, EA,
You're right. That's
executive
not.
assistant.
But no one's a secretary anymore.
sure.
Okay.
You're right, because
'Cause
that's what
that's a
I've got
woman.
got
That's-
upgraded to personal assistants.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Reinvented themselves.
Jeff Jowett, who we've had on before, made a lot of money, lost it all. When he lost all his money, he didn't know how to pay his phone bill because he had so many people doing shit for him. So there is diminishing returns
Oh,
of
that's
outsourcing,
over-engineered.
outsourcing the shit that
Yeah.
you should actually know
Yeah.
how to do.
100%.
I mean-
I'm quite an efficient person anyway, so I think there are. Look, my work volume's not to the point yet where I need someone to just manage the inbox.
But it'd be
I'd
lovely.
say.
That'd be lovely.
Plus, I don't know. I think when you are a little bit type A, maybe I enjoy that sort of stuff as well.
I enjoy it once I've done it, and I always have the moment of like, why don't I do this more often?
The admin stuff.
Yeah, like responding to emails or something, right?
Do you
I
like
have
ticking off stuff?
Yeah, so I've got in my notes now like a to-do list. And I've
Yes.
sort of been ticking off
Yes.
that sort of works well.
Yeah.
What are the habits that you have created for yourself to make sure that you are being that type A person?
And maybe specifically to 2019.
What did you do this year?
Yeah.
To make sure that I am being that person. Oh, there's a couple of or it also on the flip side, knowing that I am like that,
Sure.
sometimes I can get buried in emails, for example, whereas I know that that's not really where I should be focusing because that's not work. So if I know I need to focus on something, then I'll close the email browser, just make sure that I'm not on it.
Sure.
If I can see it and I can see something coming through, I find it very hard not to.
Check it, yeah.
Yeah. or even respond to it right there in the moment. I can't really leave things.
Yeah.
So I need to just not see it. So I'll close the email browser off and just deep dive. Or quite often I'll print things off as opposed to working. If it's like a white paper or some research, or I'll print it off and just close the lid and actually physically remove myself from device and just get through it. Get the old highlighter out.
Do you reckon you'll spend how long a day on email?
Oh, it's really hard to calculate that, isn't it?
So it's not like you don't sort of go into defined times where it's like between 11 a.m. and midday I'm getting back to my email and then I'm going to do.
No, I'm not that diligent with batching. And plus my day is often dictated by like clients' needs as well, or where my meetings sit. So any one day will be quite different from another.
What do you think if you did do the batching thing? It sounds great in reality, but do you leave off a whole bunch of ops?
A lot of people do that, right? Like, so they say, okay, between, a lot of people actually leave their emails to the end of the day. I've never really batched.
Do you think it would be beneficial? I've thought about doing it, but then it's like, would you be annoyed if you're like, sorry, mate, can't touch it?
But I'm doing that anyway. But the thing is, I'm doing it anyway, but it's this unintentional, just like, fuck, haven't done email. Like, I don't live in email. When I was younger and I was freelancing, especially working just solo on my own, it was always email, right? Because that was the only way that you're corresponding.
Well, it's an important part of what I do, absolutely, because you have to just, respond to clients and make sure you're on top of things. And also that's part of your brand is how quickly you can respond and resolve issues and consult and all that sort of stuff. So I do spend quite a bit of time there, but I don't know how you could kind of, because it's always,
those micro things, like right?
Yeah.
Well, because that's what I feel is like, sometimes I appreciate the short, like someone that's just sends sounds great or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas I think I over-engineer where if I've gotten a long email, I'm like, need to go through and do dot point. But I think that there is something in the quicker approach of just first thought go type of thing, where I think my go-to is I read an email and then I'm like, this requires more than 30 seconds. Leave it for another time. But then another email comes and that's the same thing. And so,
are you good at, so if you leave it for another time, do you always go back to it?
Well, I don't archive it. So I try and I live in a world that is so it's I live in a inbox zero world, but the inbox is never zero. But the thing is, so I can yesterday I got to an email that a chain that was like from September, which is pretty it's a long period of time. The funny thing is I'm like, sorry for the delay, and they're like, oh, we know it's a busy time of year. I'm like, this was from September. But I think there is, I definitely see that there, but there is it's hard because say with the Daily Talk Show, this is on that branding piece.
Yep.
We get a bunch of emails.
Do you guys have separate inboxes for Daily Talk Show and Big Media?
Hi at thedailytalkshow.com.
Yeah, but
so that's where
But one inbox?
Yeah, so they all sit within the contexts of our email clients.
Yes.
We see them as one.
Yes.
And so there has been that conversation throughout the year of like, hey,
what
are we doing with email? Like, hi at the Daily Talk Show, like I'm just going to start archiving them because I want to sort of keep things clean.
Yeah.
But it's also that thing of so the brand, this is what we're trying to work out, I guess, from an internal communications point of view, the brand value of being great at comms, like getting back to people. And I don't think that we've necessarily, our thoughts, normally what happens is if we're not sure, if we're like trying to work it out, if it requires too much friction, it doesn't get dealt with.
Right.
Because it's like, okay, we don't have anything that is actually of value for this person. But I think there is something in potentially getting good at maybe not even a template, but here's a quick response that we can send so it's done and it's actually.
Well, it is a template, isn't it? It's your default response for those sorts of scenarios or queries that don't fit.
Yeah. Where
you just go, okay, this is how we, because otherwise, I mean, that could potentially save you a couple of hours a week.
Well, also, it's not even a couple of hours a week. I find with these things, it's the residual
It's the
effect of it.
cognitive-
Yeah, it's a
yeah.
thing of like, I've had
Reduce
that
the
email.
cognitive load. Yeah, for
But
sure.
then on the other side, the benefit to the brand of a touch point, the person that never got back versus the person that just said, hey, sorry, we're on a project
Yeah,
and
definitely.
what can't work on that for you, but any other time, love to speak to you.
You know, again, back in 2 Times You days, we used to have so many requests for sponsorship. You know, I'm doing this charity fun run, I'm climbing this mountain, I'm doing this, that and the other. And you can't have a bespoke answer for every single person. To a degree, yes, you can tweak it, but there needs to be some sort of efficiency to your comms for sure.
I think there's definitely something in that 2020. What are you trying to get better at?
So I've had the pleasure and the privilege of working with a coach for the first time in the last couple of months, and that's been really interesting. So he, Clint Bizzle, former AFL player, now resilience leadership coach, and he is also trained in Enneagram personality profiling. I don't know if you guys have heard about Enneagram. So up until this year, I've always kind of resisted the whole personality profiling thing quite a lot. Have you guys done it? Any
I've done it
form of?
before. Yeah, I did it when I was doing the coaching course. My wife has just done it and she's obsessed
What
with it. I'll
model
tell you,
did
she just sent me her stuff. I'll just tell you the brand or whatever.
Mine was the D. What's the
like Myers-Briggs is
Myers-Briggs,
quite
yeah.
okay.
So I did that when I was working at the fire brigade in the media department, and I was like a trainee.
Facet 5 testing. She's actually sent me her one, and this woman who specializes in it.
Right.
She's like, we should both do it.
Yeah.
And then they sort of just talk to us about
it was quite fascinating
what we're doing.
So I have resisted it a lot in my career and in my personal life in the past. I think because from a personal branding perspective, I've always been very wary about people holding onto narratives or, you know, it might be 5, 6, 7 years ago and you've been given some feedback by, it might be a manager, it might be a person in your life that told you that you were X and you've somehow hung on to that over the last however many years and sort of thought, well, that's not me because I am this, you know. And I think some people more than others can kind of end up prescribing to a certain narrative. I'm a bit wary. It's funny. I don't read horoscopes for the same reason because I feel like knowing me, I will just cling on to it. It's like, even though I don't really believe in that kind of stuff, I feel like I know my personality would sort of hold on to things that I've read.
What about if the things that you read served you though?
So that's something that through this process, so the Enneagram personality profiling, I think it comes out with 12 different models. So you take a 45 to 50-minute online survey and it's all it's quite an interactive, how do you describe it when it sort of changes?
Like choose your own adventure. So it's a dynamic.
It's dynamic. So in terms of the way it dishes up your questions, it does it live based on, you know, the answers that you're spitting in. So as off the back of the answers that I gave through this process, a week later, my report came back and it was like a 38 to 40 page document that really stepped you through everything from, you know, your strengths and weaknesses to like your defaults, how you manage other people, good other personalities within the spectrum that you complement your personality, that particular traits that might be challenging for you. And I, for the first time, I read this through in high detail and found it incredibly telling in terms of the why behind my behaviours and why I do things. So I think for the first time I was really starting to question the motivations, like the deep motivations behind my defaults.
Did it feel like it could be less personal? Like you could read it and consume it because it was something you put in the input data, and then it is sort of in a non-judgmental way come out with, hey, this is because really you inputted
Yeah.
the information
Yeah.
and it's just come back with it, rather than say the emotional stuff that comes with doing a 360 review where people are providing feedback.
Like anecdotal.
Yeah.
I didn't really think about it that.
Do you think you're good with feedback normally? Like if someone gives you feedback within the context of sort of, work or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I always take it quite personally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always interested in feedback, and I'm always interested in growing and learning. But I think what I've learnt about myself over the last few months has been quite significant, and the way in which small daily behaviours have changed my approach to work and my outputs as a result have been quite exponential.
What is the most telling thing? What?
So my personality is by nature a real giver. I like to give. And there was also, I think I started to question, there's a real insight around what is the motivation behind that giving? Is it actually because you're trying to value add for other people, or is it more about what you're getting back yourself internally? And what are the expectations that you have as a result of that giving? Like, does it come with something? And I'd never thought so deeply about what my expectations were as a result of giving. And I do it a lot through, by nature of my work professionally, but also personally, because I enjoy it. I enjoy giving things and going over and above. And so in terms of from a client and a business perspective is being a lot more cognizant and wary about over-delivering all the time, because I think we can often live in that place, especially, living a kind of consultant life, is making sure that you are showing that you're delivering good value.
It's a protective mechanism, because like if I provide more value than I think that I should be giving, then I can go to bed every night knowing that what I charge when I show up in the world, I'm all good.
Yeah. Because I think one of my deepest fears is I would hate for a client to feel like they haven't gotten good value or they've been shortchanged, or so there's this constant, I'll just give a bit more. But how long do you keep doing that before it actually ends up you're being hamstrung? And it can also compromise your earning capacity because you're giving too many hours. It can also burn you out, and also you're looking for validation through that giving too much, I think. So just in terms of 2019, probably learning a lot more about truly how to work smarter rather than harder, I think.
What does that look like for you?
Being really measured about how much energy I put into my work often, and also so we came up with this kind of the core takeaway for me was being a master of protecting the motherfucking asset, which is yourself, right? So especially as a consultant, when you're running your own business, if you're not feeling great yourself or feeling depleted, ultimately that's going to manifest in your work and you're not going to be delivering the best work. So you have to self-care like a boss when you run your own business, basically, and you have to treat that as important as your client work. I know that sounds incredibly simple and almost it is probably one of the most powerful insights, I suppose. And it's okay to say that, but to actually deliver on that insight is something quite different. So learning how to respect yourself as much as you respect the work and the clients. I mean, you guys do you struggle with that at all?
Is it listening to your body? Is that what in essence it is?
It's not just it's not just your body, well, it's your mind as well as so you have to create time for. So there's a lot of sort of discourse out there at the moment around professionals or executive as athlete as well. So in terms of high performance coaching in that E-suite, C-suite space is treating rest and recovery like you are an athlete, because to build a sustainable career, truly sustainable one and a sustainable life, we need to be taking care of ourselves and putting more rules in place, around technology, around how many hours of sleep you're getting. Do you want to be going longer, stronger for longer, as opposed to just go right here, right now. Because if I'm burnt out, I don't have any sick leave. I don't have any I can't take sick leave or stress leave or whatever. So no one else is going to get the work done.
But you have a hamper.
Got the hamper.
Get into,
yeah. I think it's it's interesting because when you, especially being in the branding space, you have, as you sort of said with the email, your brand is that you get back to people really quickly.
Yeah.
And so there's a part of me which my approach to email is self-preservation.
Yes.
And so from a consistency, and that's why I always find type A-ness an interesting thing, because I think that in some areas I'm really type A, but then
what sort of areas?
I think around consistency. So saying say with the, if I've got an idea and I know that it's going to serve the future, I think I can put in effort for a long period of time.
Yep.
So the idea of the daily talk show being, doing it 7 days and doing all that sort of thing. And that's where I think that comes in. However, I also prioritize and drop everything else. So I've got that focus, potentially obsession, where I could obsess about something. But it's, do
you think it's selective obsession though?
Yeah, definitely. And so there's something, I think that there's probably, so if I was good at email, what does it mean to be good at email?
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
And so good at email is being quick at responding.
Yeah, efficiency, timeliness.
Exactly.
Personalization, resolution.
So all of those things where I'm like, okay, so I go through moments where I say I want to be the best at email. Because the thing is that one of the strong values for me is communication and strong relationships.
Yeah.
However, the thing that I find is the email doesn't necessarily hold the deep relationships that I'm seeking. I think that the common sort of idea that phones are bad or whatever, I think actually I reckon phone calls are the new in person. I think that there's so much power in, okay, I'm filling my favorites list on my iPhone of these are people who I'm going to speak to weekly. I'm just going to call them.
That's an interesting one. Do you guys, because I think in today's day and age, you'd probably only have maybe a handful of people in your life who they're a caller, they're a phone person.
Yeah.
Are you guys phone people? As in we'll call as opposed to text?
I mean, I've got my best mates and some that I have always been callers with. My friend Matt, we used to just always catch up on the phone. He loves a good chat. I love a good chat. And we just chat. It's just a couple of blokes chatting, having a little gossip. You know?
Still do it?
Yeah. He lives down the coast now, so it's the only way. We text every now and then, but sometimes we just randomly chat.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it. Yeah.
So in terms of the brand, are you guys – it's an interesting
We
one.
need to get good at email as the daily talk show operation. So, for instance, the calendar, we've automated that where it's sending a calendar request to someone, they get all the details. Yep. But the next level, I don't think it's necessarily me with the skill set that I have to do it, but I think that we need to be across every email and sending out.
Just that systems and processes thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so just especially with the more and more sort of PR opportunities that we get with brands and things like
Yeah.
that. It sort of compounds.
So what's going to be your vetting procedure and what are all those kind of templates that you're going to have in place?
Yeah.
I mean, you could write that as your holiday work, Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's
Then it becomes
the
a
list
job.
of
That's
templates?
someone's job.
Well,
Like someone has to be on the receiving end of that.
Well, I guess there's guess we need to work out, okay, what's
Yes
important.
and no. You could have the templates ready to go, and then any of you could just use
Yeah.
it. Do you know what I mean?
And so it shouldn't be hard. The hilarious thing about these things is they're actually, once they're ready and being implemented, they're not that difficult. It's just a very specific choice of this is the rule. And so the thing is, if your rule is by 6 p.m. every evening, the inbox is empty.
Yeah.
That's like a very easy thing to make sure that, like, then it never becomes an issue, right?
Yeah.
And
So exactly, but it's an interesting test for your brand around what is our rule book? Like, what does it look like?
yeah.
So what does it mean? You know, what does efficient comms look like to you? Does it mean a 24-hour response rate? Does it mean 48-hour? Does it mean actually we're going to call everyone that comes on the show for a 15-minute briefing? Or what's the debrief look like? And when we send out, you know, the assets post-show, what's that email going to look like? And how can we formalize some of the stuff that we're kind of doing by nature now? Maybe not. Some of the stuff that we are and we're not. So good segue. Looking back on 2019 and you guys as a brand, what are some of the biggest learnings? Have you had time to sort of take stock and?
Yeah.
I think you need to do a whole bunch to work out where the focus should be. So the email thing is only because the show's got bigger. We've had more inbound.
Yeah.
And so
Volume.
until we work out that,
Yep.
you could obsess over it before you get the inbound, which doesn't really give it the tangible feel of when you actually start having it come in. But 2019, it's been a year of learning for us, understanding what it actually means to build an audience. We've worked with so many brands catering to their audience or understanding what we should be creating for them to target a specific type of audience. But then there's something in actually starting to have people listen and get a consistent group of people.
Have you done? My brain just pinged. Have you done
Ding dong.
like a reflective, like a content analysis to look at? These are all the kinds of hosts that we've had, and these are all the different industries that we've touched in the conversations.
Yeah, it's
Have you done much of that?
definitely. So that's where, like, we were talking the other day about getting someone who's a data scientist who wants, because we've got, like, there's very few shows in the world that are doing video, that are doing audio, that are doing, like, we transcribe through, AI or whatever, all of the episodes. So we can do things like Mr. 97 can look up specific topics.
Yep.
You can see, word clouds and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, there's definitely, so for instance, one of them is like Sundays. So the thing that, so we have put our assumptions to the test. One of the assumptions that we had was around podcasts tend to get people on once. They have a deep conversation and that's it. What happens if you're doing a show for 10 years and you have the same people on multiple times? What happens if it's not about Tommy or I and it's about everything else that's around it? So Scooter Derek being at, AU79 at the event, he's got he's building a character within the community that we have, which then gives us more opportunities for creativity. So it means that if we are doing a live show, we can actually throw to him and people have buy-in.
Got it.
So there's that side of things. Around the Sunday stuff and the data, what we are working towards is exporting out all of the data that we have over the past 2 years, working out days. Let's work out what days are doing best.
Yep.
Working out, we can do stuff like the difference between a listener and a download. So we can see, okay, the average listener is listening to 3 episodes a week or things like that. but yeah, we're constantly, I think.
What about time of day?
Yeah, so time of day, it's hard because of like geography and people being in different areas. 70% of our audience are Australian, and then 70% of that 70% are based in Melbourne. So I think that it's fair to say that at the beginning we were sort of going for more of a global thing. We've actually probably narrowed in to let's nail what we can do in Melbourne and in Australia.
Yep.
And then the question is, what do you do with this data? So if we aren't the people that can understand this or have the time to put in to really sort of spit out the other side, the exact information, what do you do with it? And this is what someone said this to us before. Are you looking at all these things, drop-off rate? But there is an element of it's like, yes, so your assumption is if you listen to that and you act on the data, the feedback, it will in turn give you some other result.
Yeah.
So it will increase listenership. That has to be the assumption based on someone encouraging you to look at the data.
I think there's a difference though between looking at something at a weekly level and a yearly level, right?
Definitely.
So
I mean, the more data you have, the more powerful it is.
Yeah.
But I think the tricky thing is when you're looking at data and you're doing content analysis, is it the day of the podcast that worked? Was it the guest you had? Was it the time of day? Was it all the other stuff that was trending online at that moment in time?
Like and the platform itself increasing. So that's what
is it growing the category? You know, is it the fact that podcasts in general could just keep growing and growing, or is that
is it the sex tape Josh released?
Well, there's definitely patterns, right?
What? But it's coming 2020.
2020. No, there's definitely patterns, I think. And so, like, I think that we can look at that. I think that I'm all definitely...
So broad themes or patterns or takeaways from 2019 in terms of the brand.
So, like, I think the patterns... So what I love about what we do from a brand perspective is the guests are fairly broad, but they all have something in common. Like, I think there is a through line.
So what is that commonality?
I think the commonality is a willingness to walk up here and come on the show. I think if you are willing to do that, you're already ticking some form of box, which is okay with ambiguity.
Yeah.
Because it's not that 15 minutes. So by design, not having a 15-minute call beforehand.
But I love that. That's that's almost like a value, right?
Yeah.
Okay with ambiguity. Like literally capturing that and formalizing that and owning that.
Yeah. Like Ange Rao, who we had on, who we did the improv with, where she was going back into her CNN days and doing all that sort of thing. Like, to be able to enter it, you could have so many different news anchors with completely different personalities, but people loved that episode and they really enjoyed what she brought to the table because she just had a few sets of values, which is just showing up, leaning in. Same with Michael Bungay-Stanier. It's like we do live coaching with Harry. And so I think that that's the thread for everyone. But then it's also it's about bringing in people who are very contrasting, in sort of personalities. So you have people who are high performance business. Let's talk numbers.
That diversity in talent and diversity in story and experience and so forth. Yeah.
And so that's another element of it. Then, outside of that, I think it is what people like Mr. 97 brings, or what Harry brings, or what 3D Dill brings, or what Queen Gronk brings. Like all these different people who have become the show, I think is like in 2020, I think that's the exciting thing. It's like you look at all the people that we've had involved in the show, these are all like new relationships. And so think about like where the power is in 12 months' time. What's your external, I guess you're in the community too, so there is that element, but what's your
I think community
viewpoint?
is hugely important to you guys. I was reading an article, I think it was Harvard Business Review. Denise Yon is the author. She writes some of the best brand articles and does a lot of research around branding. And she came up with, this was just this week, a 9-point model or a framework of 9 different types of brands. And I was thinking about you guys when I was reading, and she sort of, I think the 9 were around. I'm not going to remember them all.
Can you bring it up, Sebs?
Nice, yeah.
What was her name again? Denise
Yon, I think.
It was 9 brand.
It wasn't called that. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, you probably check out my activity, and then there would have been an article.
I think I found Denise.
Oh, well done.
On Harvard.
Mate, he's good.
Harvard Business Review. Ping, ping.
Good people. Surroundings.
So some of them were, I'm going to say like a disruptor, experience, brand.
Disruptive, conscious, service,
Love him.
Innovative, value, performance, luxury, style, and experience.
I counted.
Yeah.
There was 9.
Okay.
Got my fingers. Got my fingers.
So for me, experience was a big one for you guys. And then I think you've got a little bit of disruptor in there as well, because you are a challenger brand in a way, I think. How would you identify with those?
I like those.
Yeah.
I mean, the disruptor definitely, because I think like we are obviously doing within the space of new media, not really I think this is what we do.
Like you're not
We
disrupting
bring
the
old
category.
and new. So we bring old and new together, right? And so by bringing both of them together, it's like the people who aren't meant to be behind the mic.
Yeah.
So it's like within the podcast context, having Jason PJ, who are a breakfast radio show in Melbourne, and having so much fun with them.
Yeah.
Or Ben Fordham in Sydney.
Yeah.
These things, this is where that contrast comes in.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where it is. It's borrowing the old, because I guess that a disruptor could sometimes be seen as isolating themselves from what has been
Convention. Yeah.
And I think what we're trying to do is bring convention in, because we understand that they've been doing heaps of things right.
Yes.
But then once we have that convention disrupted on the show.
Was there one in there, Miss 97, around learning, learning mindset? I think, or not even one of the types, but I think in terms of defining, I think that's a big one for me in terms of you guys and your interest in ongoing learning and that growth mindset. And I mean, you're just sponges. You seem like there's that incredible curiosity all the time. Going back to what you were saying before, Josh, around kind of marrying old school and new school, or tradition with innovation is almost regularly creating those friction points. And because I think that's where the magic happens, right? Where you're kind of like, oh, well, this is an interesting perspective, and let's play with that. And this is the way it has always generally been done, but we're going to try it this way. And we're going to book some tickets to LA and just go throw ourselves in an environment, and we'll work it out later.
Unconventional structure. So we've had a bunch of people say, I liked the difference in the structure of that. Whether it's no structure, it's just our structure.
Yeah.
I mean, no structure becomes a thing that we do that then becomes the way we structure it.
But the irony being that it is incredibly structured because it's that 7-day format and that you are showing up. Like there's the structure.
It's the silent strategy that we always talk about, which is like we're sort of – and that's why like I'm actually, I think, really good with feedback from people around understanding where we sit. When people provide feedback, like say for instance, going to family Christmas or whatever, and my auntie's like, oh yeah, so-and-so doesn't listen because you swear. I'm like, that's okay. And so they're like, so their answer is don't swear.
Yeah.
And my answer is it's like, it's not for them.
Yeah.
And so, and the thing is you could easily say, you could definitely say, all right, Tommy and Josh, if you don't swear, you could gain 20% more people listening, right? But I think that within this space, within the disruption, I think we are being true versions of ourselves. And so maybe we'll swear less. Maybe as individuals we'll grow. Maybe by the time we're in our late 30s or whatever, things will change.
But isn't that's at breadth rather than, depth rather than breadth.
Yeah.
Like it's you're building a more sustainable, deep, rich strong brand.
Well, because it's us.
Yeah,
and it's like,
exactly.
that's why we can have Ash Williams on the
Yeah.
show, and then we could have a serious executive.
Yeah. You could do a million other things to get more likes.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that any brand wanting the here and now quick wins as opposed to, well, yeah, we could do that, but it doesn't mean that that's true to our brand and that's not going to be sustainable and that's not going to build a community that's going to stay with us for the next 5 to 10 years. And it's not going to differentiate ourselves. So 1 trip overseas per year, is that the commitment?
Oh, I'd like more, to be honest.
I think probably 2. I reckon every 6 months. But, I mean, it depends. So what we discovered, so part of our learnings was the daily talk show is a beast and it can take huge amounts of time. Even though we feel that we can show up and do it, there is the residual thing where it's like, say with this one, we're pre-recording it because, you know, we're going to take a small period of time between sort of Chrissy and, you know, the 6th or whatever. So we're doing, you know, 3 in a day, you know, today, or there might be just the explaining to people or communicating what we do can be difficult. So
good. So the deck you guys prepared before you went to LA.
Yeah.
Did you find that quite a challenge in terms of, because that can be one of the most powerful ways to force you to define and capture your brand and the value of your brand.
Yeah.
So tell me about that process.
Well, I think if you to say specifically to what Belinda's talking about is a deck or a proposal for sponsorship of the show while we're away. And so if you take it one step back and look at the process of creating a deck or creating anything that communicates, formalizes or communicates you, it's like the biggest thing is just doing something.
Yes.
Like having a deck or doing the process once. Doesn't even matter what it is, because what I think the learning is it starts solidifying thinking and testing assumptions and working out what you think it is and what other people think it is. So
you have to articulate it. Like you literally have to capture it. So it forces that discipline of sort of saying, okay, well, why should anyone else care? You know, what do we have that is valuable, and how can we target people? Who do we want to target? And I think it was interesting reading through it because I think there was some magic missing that is hard to capture unless you actually do a real because it can take time. Quite often you have to do a full deep dive in terms of you know, what is our special sauce and what makes our brand different, and even talking about those regular friction points and what do we say before around the whole being okay with ambiguity and, you know, one day we might have, you know, Seth Godin and the next day we have Belinda Wall. We're okay with all ends of the spectrum. But I think that is your magic, you know, and not being afraid to say this is who we are and we don't have all the answers just yet, but we're like this kind of wild work in progress and that's what makes us awesome.
Hard to put in a deck. I reckon like one of the things that part of it is.
Does it have to be a deck?
Yeah, well, I don't think so. Well, so it's brand, right?
So make a freaking video.
Yeah. And so I think for us where it's at, like, because we like, say we do our sort of pump up sort of pre-500, the video, and that does quite well in regards to people enjoy it. I think that one of the nuances is 2019 was messy for us based on contrasting goals or objectives. And so not being able to align the thing that you're spending most of your time on with financial outcomes. And so you're running a business over here that's doing one thing, but you are putting huge amounts of brand equity into this thing. And so part of it, I think, is that what we were seeking within that document was tidy, right? We wanted a clear, easy answer that could communicate to people who don't necessarily know us, but they can see it and understand it. I think what we learnt through that process is, I mean, if we're asking of our guests to play an ambiguity, we need to be okay with ambiguity going forward. So it's not going to be tidy. So I think that's the first thing. But I guess one of the values we're looking at is if you can even call it, I guess, outlook is diversification of revenue. So looking at, so for instance, with that document, that was really based on, the biggest problem with that document was we worked out how much money we need to make, and then we reverse engineered it into a document, which we've never done business like that before. It's always about like, what's the problem that the client has? How can we solve it? We know that in the future, in 5 years' time, what the Daily Talk Show has in regards to community and all those, media products will have the impact that we actually can give the proper amount of value.
Yeah. So what are the proof points that you need to build up to get there?
I think that, well, the proof points are in the like performance marketing. So it's like, it's the basic thing of, and this is what our friends Shameless do really well. It's like advertise in our show, it costs X amount and you'll get X return. Here's a case study. I don't think that we're in a position yet to do that in a big way. And so what we're talking about is, when we were looking at it initially, it was like, okay, charging $1,000 an episode, right? Based on this is how much it costs to keep the lights on and do all that sort of stuff. The reality is that when you look at CPMs, if you actually look at it just very transactional, it's like, okay, we could sell it for $120 or something an episode.
It's really interesting around, in terms of say 2020 trends with Instagram. As we've seen, a lot of micro influencers are having. My brain's just spinning after you've said this. Micro influencers are having a greater, return value for brands than say the macro influencers and the huge ones. So in a similar vein, it's like, well, how can we potentially work with micro advertisers?
Yeah.
And in order to literally build up our proof points to say, okay, well, let's just get a run on the board, and then so we have a case study in 12 months' time to say we worked with a sponsor that gave us $10, and that's all they could afford. And now they are, So you could literally just use it as an experiment to build a case study and build a narrative to support your case, and it doesn't have to be huge dollars.
Well, that's it.
It's about okay, we played in this micro advertising space because we wanted to see where it went and where we could take a brand and what kind of stories we could tell for them and audiences they could reach.
When you don't understand how to do it, it's a natural thing to look to how other people are doing it, but then that isn't necessarily how you should do it.
Yeah.
So then you have to then be up for getting stuff wrong.
Yep.
So if you try someone else's approach or an approach that is consistent to the landscape, advertising, CPM, cost per 1,000 listeners is X amount of dollars. It does, you got to be okay with not having the answer or having a crack at it, like being totally wrong.
Absolutely. And I think, but that's a core takeaway for you guys to say, this is our approach, and we've got to find advertisers, potential commercial partners that culturally are going to fit that model, that are really okay with ambiguity, that are willing to give this model a go, and that can kind of get in the rumble with us. It's going to get a bit messy, and let's just give it a crack.
Well, it's also like, I think we've taken an all or nothing approach previously. And so there is the in between. And so, for instance, like say if average, we need to make 30 grand a month just to sort of pay our salaries, do all that sort of thing, not paying ourselves ridiculous amounts, paying for the lease, expenses, all that sort of thing. Traditionally, what we've done is we've said, okay, let's we might get 2 or 3 video jobs, which pays for that per month. And so then the extension was, okay, we're missing opportunities based on spending so much energy on that we haven't been able to give the Daily Talk Show a red hot crack in regards to making it financially.
But, there could be even other ways that you decide to shake up the model. So, in terms of brand mashables, that's a way of calling them, or things that you want to own, you've built up this idea around Fat Fridays, right? So it's like, well, okay, how can maybe we want to sell a Fat Friday a month. And let's actually make that a thing. And how do we then, what does that mean to sell a Fat Friday? Like, we're going to sell out. Well, it doesn't need to feel like you're selling out. It's just a way of commercializing the brand. So one Friday a month, might be every Fat Friday, whoever wants to pay for it. let's build an experience and let's talk about it in a way that's kind of true and authentic and a little bit wild and a little bit kind of gronky, then who are the kinds of people that we might chase down for this whole idea of like a paid Fat Friday, or maybe we take it to the streets, or we do this or that or the other. So I think thinking outside the box can be whatever you want it to be.
What do you think, TJ, in regards to the fact, like, because that's something I think you've spoken a lot about before. What's the bit to get it, for us to get it done, do you think, or to try those types of things?
I mean, the commercial viability of it being called fat is feedback I've received from people, not specifically the brand itself, but other people. Not to say that it can't be a thing.
I feel like potential. I think part of it too
Could
is
it be called PHAT, Fat Friday?
Cool Friday, yeah.
I don't think that. I think potentially like rejection or our.
There are brands out there that wouldn't be afraid.
No, of course not, right?
Yeah.
And so you take that on and you go, is that correct? Well, I don't think so. I think anyone who has specific feedback about what's right or wrong isn't necessarily right or wrong. It's their perspective on something. So is
that the stopper though? Do you think?
No, not at all. But it's just a thought. And so I mean, I've thought it's a definitely a winner in that respect.
And so if we were giving advice to people, because we see because that's a perfect example where there's a bunch of things that like knowing isn't doing, and I guess that's like most people's frustrations in life is like we know we should be doing this or doing that.
Back to my personality profile.
Yeah,
yep.
but we're not doing it, and that's a great example for us. How do we? What are the actions or what are the steps, or how do you reconcile that? Oh yeah, we are doing it. So then we become sort of immune to the first no that we get, because I think that we've given a lot of things a go, but it's normally we at the first hurdle or the first point of friction. We then think, fuck, maybe it's not right. Maybe this is the market. Maybe this is the market telling us we don't have the right thing, which is funny because we don't do that with our content. With the show, we're very clear on this is the value we're going to bring.
How do you both have a shared kind of appetite for risk, or are you quite different on that front?
Shared appetite for risk. I mean, I think they're different. Just very much in the way we assess what even a risk is. And so, I mean, we both taken big risks to do this, and whether one feels more anxious about that specific risk or not, I don't know. It's just been, it is what it is, because we're on the same path. So you could say that you both then deal with the risk in your own way, whether it is registering or not.
But in terms of those decisions around, I'm not sure if this is working, do we stay the course or do we opt out now?
I feel like the biggest risks is normally things that we're not doing versus things that we are doing.
Okay.
So I think that's where I always am placed. So it's very rare, even like the amount of people that would say, have you thought about not doing weekends and just doing 5 days again? And I'm pretty clear on why we're doing it, what the vision is in regards to the touch points.
Yeah.
That's where things do stretches, it's like we're testing it and saying, okay, well, like if we're asking on Instagram and there's only 10% of people who listen every single episode, and the main majority put sort of at the slider of that sort of 5 to 6 episodes, what's the audience telling us? What do they need? What do they want? How do we serve them? And so from a risk point of view, that's what I think about is like, okay, the risk of not doing a wrap-up show or the risk of not doing this or not doing that. I think that's because it's cemented on that idea of Parkinson's law that you fill the time that you have allocated to it. And so for most, like I think Mr. 97's a great example of this. He's been able to think about like 6 months ago, your thoughts around social media and what you could do versus like, we would go days where we wouldn't post. And now 97's doing, 6 posts a day and being consistent and keeping that all up. So I believe that if you get the right processes in place, you can make it happen.
It's a lesson in showing up, right? Like you've just got to, and socials really like that.
Mm.
I think on most platforms, it's just the more you put out there, the more you're going to get back.
Yeah.
Interesting trends around Instagram for 2020 is this shift towards longer captions.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot more people, I think, we're going to see is shifting away from the whole picture first, content second thing. And I've already noticed, I don't know if you guys have, the length of posts are getting a lot longer.
Definitely, yeah.
And a little bit more considered. So I think that will actually separate a lot of the wheat from the chaff in terms of who has, especially for influencers, or it might even create another layer of work there for copywriters and content developers, but who can really produce creative, considered content that is more than just a beautiful photo, and how you're going to tell your brand story and how you're going to have that consistency in messaging and so forth. I think that'll be really interesting.
The words are powerful too. Like our best performing posts are text.
Yeah. People are reading that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think that you can get a message quickly, you can communicate something very quickly.
Yeah.
But also to the point of the caption, being able to say, okay, here's the photo, and then giving it the context. That's like if we're in this world of sort of people enjoying the in-joke and the meta-ness of what we're doing, then being able to compare and contrast those two things and maybe being a bit ironic or a little bit sort of playing into the format.
I think that's it. It's, hats off to you guys. I think people really want to be part of this thing that you're building. So they want to know the backstory. And I think that if you're going to test, how much they want in, you could really go deep with that.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the greatest strengths of the brand that you're building is this kind of the community side of things. And it is one that is quite deep and rich and people really want in. So the more and more you give them in terms of the juice and the narrative and I think people just keep eating it up.
Yeah.
Can you look up the definition of a cult? Because that's sounding pretty culty to me and I'm loving it. Absolutely loving
The
it.
Gronk cult.
Yeah.
Hey, have you noticed Seth Godin coming next year?
Yes. Yeah, it's very
Oh, we're
exciting.
going to try and get him on the show.
It would be great.
Imagine Seth in the middle here.
Yeah,
Well-
it would be a highlight.
So I do work with Karen Beatty, who heads up the growth
Oh,
faculty,
great.
who's
They've
bringing
got-
them out.
Did they bring out Simon Sinek as
They
well?
certainly
yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. So the growth faculty.
Let's try to pull it off, Gronk.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
So what is the growth faculty? Because I've seen them pop up a bunch.
So
Like
you-
Success Resources?
They are an events and content platform. So they're events producers, and they bring out the best thought leaders in the world to Australia, but also New Zealand. They've just launched in Singapore, so they had the Obamas, both the
Oh, wow.
Obamas
What?
speaking there over the
What's
weekend.
their? Do you know what the business
Crazy.
model
That's
is? The
huge.
business model.
It's subscription.
Okay.
And it's largely B2B. So they've got a lot of corporates that subscribe to their content. So they have exclusive content that comes through. And they also have things like, so if you're a member, you'll get new books delivered. So it's a lot of
Amazing.
education, high learning.
Is it a lost leader? All these guests. Do you think is a lost leader like a like they're not making any cash from it, but it's a brand builder? Like I wonder about those
from
events.
the event production
say
side
from
of
a
things.
Seth, from
No,
like
I think
getting
they've
Seth,
found their
so-
profitability,
Yeah.
their model for profitability. I think you're always going to I'm not going to speak. I don't know directly.
Well, because I always wonder, because my thought is, okay, if you spend $800,000,
It's expensive.
out,
Like producing events is freaking expensive.
But the thing is, I guess if it's like brands spend a lot of on marketing, and so if that's the marketing exercise, that's what I think is interesting. Is it's like, what is the business behind that? Because you think about even, the big companies of the world, the
That's not the
Microsofts,
sole
the Googles,
revenue
or whatever.
of their business,
Yeah.
obviously.
Creates good hype though, or
But
creates good eyeballs.
Yeah, I mean they they've brought out phenomenal people to Australia. Hillary Clinton, Brene Brown, obviously Simon Sinek. I think Seth Godin last time he was here was 6 years ago.
Yeah. He came for Business Chicks. I think it was.
Is he?
He was there.
Seth Godin?
Yeah. I think that was like, but yeah, I'm pretty sure. I just remember he had a
Strange
big.
brand fit.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love just
He had a big-
Sethy
brand.
Yeah, he had like a big lapel mic. I just remember seeing that on.
But if you
social.
Gronks don't get him on the show,
Yeah,
I'm
it'd be so
very
disappointed.
disappointed.
Yeah, we're just
like really disappointed.
in a van, just rock up.
So I think
get
he's in
inside.
Melbourne, Mr. 97 in May, maybe.
Yeah, he's in May.
If you can do it once, you can do it again, Josh.
What? Get him
Get-
on.
get
So
him on the show.
how long will it have been since you spoke to him?
190 was the last episode we had. So over a year ago.
Yeah, so
well
by
over
the
a
time
year
that
ago.
would be again the 600s in May. So
Year and a bit, year and a half. Wow.
Cool.
that would be
That's
that would be
exciting.
good. So the like on the brand stuff, what is your focus of 2020 if you were to describe what you do and who you are and what you want? I guess when we define a brand, I think Seth says it's like, what people say when you're not in the room. And I guess that's a reflection of your actions and the things that you do every day. What do you think? What do you want the brand
Do you know
to
one of
be?
the biggest takeaways that I have had? I've just finished reading actually Michelle Obama's book, Becoming. Have you either of you guys?
No,
I would highly recommend it. It's a brilliant read. And I've now dog-eared my copy because there's lots of great quotes in there. But one of them was, if you, and this was, in the scheme of her learnings through campaign trails and so forth, and it was the insight around if you don't take hold of your brand and your identity, then basically the public, the voting public, was going to create an identity for you. Like they're going to fill that void and they are going to create one that is more often than not a negative one in that sense. But I think the insight there around a personal brand, and I think a lot of people looking at my 2020, I think it's going to involve a lot more work around personal branding and executive coaching around that personal branding piece. And a lot more people are wanting to take control and form a strategy for themselves, whether it be on LinkedIn or online or offline, is that if you're not taking control and ownership of your profile and your brand, then the world is going to create one for you because it already exists.
Yeah.
So if people aren't willing to, because you could think, no,
Doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'll
Yeah.
just
Gives a
work.
shit.
I'll just
Yeah.
do the work. But then,
Your brand is there, like whether you like it or not.
so you
What
may
about
as
our
well take
personal-
control of it.
I find it interesting with doing something like the Daily Talk Show. What do you think it does to Tommy and my personal brand?
I've often thought about that too.
What do you think?
Yeah,
What are we thinking?
What do you get from us?
Well,
Vibe?
no, I think the question is, what do you want to be known for, and what do you want to be known as? Is it the big media company? Is it the Daily Talk Show? Is it a producer that works across both of those things? Is it something bigger? And that the Daily Talk Show is just the thing that you're delivering now?
I mean, I think I used to think about that stuff for myself more as an individual solo operator, and then you kind of have to try and put in it requires the effort to sort of like almost push that to the side and focus on this new collective thing, bringing your own spin or what you can to it. Josh bringing what he can to it, mate. Mr. Nosev's coming in later, and then you see how when you don't work on the personal brand of yourself within the duo, it can get lost a bit because you're now focusing on this collective thing.
Yeah.
But you can't disregard the energy it takes to form some new thing collectively.
I think you'd be surprised there, because I work with a lot of executives who are in a similar situation whereby they have lots of chapters in their lives, but they may be at a point where they've spent, say, the last 10 to 15 years on what feels like to be, say, a hamster wheel, just doing this thing that they're doing, maybe building a business or working their way up a corporate ladder or what have you, and they've sort of lost that time or that discipline of that self-reflection and working out, okay, where do I actually fit in this? What's my role? They've just been on a delivery. So a lot of what I do is actually unpacking the common thread and their personal narrative and going back to, okay, so what are all the things in your career that, like, what is the red thread behind it? And even though you may have had different chapters, like you may have been a personal trainer, you might be a host of the daily talk show, you might be a producer for the big media company, like what is the actual thing that ties that all together? And that is the Tommy Jackett, basically. It doesn't matter what your thing is that you're delivering right here, right now. That's just today's kind of the current manifestation of what your sort of higher purpose or your brand is.
Is it counterintuitive or like, I guess, say for instance you talk about big media company or the daily talk show, I almost feel from a personal brand perspective maybe slightly detached from those things. So like obviously like the daily talk show, yes, because it's that external thing. But when I think about personal brand, I sort of go into Tommy is the guy that, or Josh is the guy that, rather than, but maybe I'm giving it too much nuance versus what the general public sees. So we're with ourselves, you know, every day as individuals. And so we can create this nuanced approach. Whereas it's always funny when you see someone and they like what they pick out. It's like, oh, the daily, like you do this or you do that. Or,
I was just thinking, it all comes back to someone reflecting on the doing aspect of your past or present. So you're the guy that is always bloody talking, podcasting. You know, it's like it's because we do that.
Yeah.
And so when I think about past, and maybe things that are missing, it's the doing that I was doing back then that isn't in the now.
So what aren't you doing
No,
now?
I don't know. I'm just reflecting on it, but I'm just like, if someone says, "Oh, you're the guy that," they're actually speaking to something that you do.
Yeah.
And so, if the person on the hamster wheel for 15 years is actually they're actually been doing a whole bunch of stuff, but might not necessarily connect to the thing that they've wanted to do, wanted to be seen as, wanted to be known as.
Maybe it's the one-dimensional doing that can also be the issue. So, for instance, like the daily talk show, even though there's nuance within the show, it is one-dimensional or whatever. So, for me, like saying yes to doing emceeing of a charity gig or things like that is my way of being more than a podcaster or that sort of thing and more a facilitator.
Well, exactly. So,
Yeah.
for example, your thing might be more around sharing stories and building experiences between people or building community between people. And you do that through the videos that you produce and edit. You do that through the daily talk show. You do that through emceeing. It's kind of galvanizing human stories and experiences into things that are shareable and enjoyable and challenging and, you know. So it's almost...
So how do you get to that? So that there is sort of like a second thought to the first thought of we're logos or whatever, like at the daily talk show, big media company, Josh works on those sorts of things. What do you need to do you think, to become that? So how do you go from being the brand person, say if you work within an organization, say you're the CEO of a company.
Firefox.
Yeah, Firefox. How do you go from being the CEO of Firefox to the person who isn't the cutting edge of web security and privacy, but also is building like a platform that's open source?
Right.
Like I wonder how do you bring the public into the nuance of your personal brand?
So I think that comes down to not being afraid to share your whole self no matter what you're doing. So yes, right now you're doing the daily talk show, or as in that's one of your most public touch points, so to speak, but you also have a million other things going on in your lives. But quite often people feel like the only thing that they can share publicly is what you're doing on the daily talk show because I'm that guy. Well, that's not necessarily true. Like think about what are the bigger things that you're doing. You know, what are you doing on the weekend to satiate your curiosity for X, or you're also really nerdy around technology. And
is the podcast, I mean, because podcast is another beast where it's almost like, so take like the CEO example versus a podcast. The podcast is two personal brands having friction and then bringing other person, like talking at a very sort of like brandy sort of transactional level potentially. But you've got Tommy's personal brand and Josh's personal brand. And so, and then you've got Belinda's personal brand. And so when Belinda comes in, she is going to bring her perspective
and experiences.
And then it's our job to interact with that. And so potentially when it's just us as individuals, if we're talking about something, if we're talking about cheese subscriptions, right? You know, monthly subscription.
It's a thing.
Cheese. I listened to
Jesus.
And so the thing is, do you get to a point where you know what I would be thinking in this moment and what Tommy's thinking? Like I guess that's personal brand in some ways, which is like throw something at, like, so when if we have a guest that comes in and you hear the guest say something, I guess we want to get to a point where people say, we'll think Tommy's going to ask this right now, and then it happens.
I think that comes down to your character and your reputation for, say, you know, we were reflecting before about Ash Williams' episode, and I said, oh, you just didn't let him go, Josh. You just kept challenging him with that question, and you were quite dogged in your approach. And that is something people would remember you for in terms of your character.
Yeah. You can't help but do anything else.
Yeah.
So it's real brand.
That's your
strong.
That's your thing.
Yeah.
You know.
So that's like shtick in some.
No, that's like, you, dude.
So how do we work out? Like, how do we? Because that's almost like heightened versions potentially, which comes out through a show. I know this is very nuanced, but it's just funny.
No, so it's similar to. Again, it's something I always challenge people with is when they're thinking about their own brands is it matters not just what you are doing but how you are doing it and why you are doing it. So tell me about your character, like give me a taste and an insight into your character.
So then intentionality within what we say, like I find that interesting. So you using the Ash Williams example, what intention did you think that I was bringing to that? Like what was the personality or value set that I was bringing to that conversation, do you think?
I think you were, I don't know, but you were genuinely curious to know the answer. And so you have a dogmatic approach to really unlocking the story behind your guests' experiences. So that speaks to your character and your incessant curiosity, whereas Tommy's a bit more sit back, have a giggle and watch this all play out.
Yeah.
I had a moment in that where I was like, Josh understands that Ash possesses the answer, so he wants him to deliver it. I know you've got this in you. Yeah. Ash is over here going, no, fuck it. And then I think if you're to not respect, but empathize with how he feels in that moment. So you're up against, not that you're not being empathetic for him not wanting to fucking go there or answer it. He doesn't have it. He's like, can't be bothered. But then you're also going, you're better than this, buddy. And so then those two things are clashing, which is a weird thing.
Was it within you, or do you ever think from the listener's perspective, like consciously, as in like they're going to want to know?
I think I'm also projecting back our guests' approach potentially. So I know Ash is unapologetically him. He says outrageous things. Yeah. And so I think it would have been a disservice to not do the exact same back. So if we're going to give a platform to someone where it's like we're going to get into the nitty gritty. He's going to ask 97 if you had sex. And
You're
all
not
that
afraid
sort
to
of thing.
challenge for the story.
But I guess that's based on values. If we had someone for the very first time who is, very sort of that isn't one of their brand values or whatever, potentially I wouldn't go there. So it's interesting. Like I think that I think the other
by
thing too
nature,
is from
you are very inquisitive.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
so I guess like part of it, like using Ash's example, there's definitely part of him which is so he's talking. What I enjoy is paradox or contradictions and stuff like that.
Friction points.
Friction
as we were
points.
talking about before.
And so there's a guy who is currently on a podcast network.
Yeah.
Who is saying that in 2020 he's going to own all of his content. And so the big question is, does that mean you're leaving the network? Which you'd think the answer, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
But so the funny thing is, if the listener is thinking that, if they're geeking out and being like, wonder what that means for that thing, it gives the opportunity potentially of having some fun in it because there's Ash is never going to say anything that he doesn't want to say. He didn't share that episode, so obviously we hit some form of nerve.
I'll text him.
Yeah. But no, I'll text him now. I've got his
Yeah,
number.
you've got his.
Yeah.
Mason's got his number too.
Yeah, but have you ever thought about doing a podcast?
Ash, I'm sorry.
Do you think that you would ever do a podcast? Is that within your scope of interest?
I'm doing one right now.
As in like you're hosting
Yeah.
one?
I know. Yeah, I love a good chat.
Mhm.
I love a good chat.
Yeah.
In fact, I took my sisters away. We went away last weekend to Dalesford, and which was super lovely. But one of my favourite things in the world is sit down, and I think one of my sisters is more a deep talker than a deep thinker, and
Deep talker.
because we're having this chat around who's a caller and who's a texter and all this sort of stuff, and
Good quality banter.
Right, banter.
great banter. But I'm one of those people that I love to sit around and have a coffee and just talk about the world.
Yeah, definitely.
I love a conversation.
Yeah.
Will I ever produce my own podcast? I'm not going to say no.
Or just
I've
come on
never
here.
thought about
just
it.
come on here. You can
Regular
just-
chats.
Yeah.
Regular chats with the Gronks.
What's your go-to form of creation or putting something out into the world? A medium like?
I love writing.
Mhm.
Love copywriting. I do like Instagram for that. I feel like it challenges me. Well, I like challenging myself with it to go, how can I share something that I've learnt in a way that is different, and how can I marry a great image with an insight? I like the creativity of that. And I love, by nature of branding, I love and copywriting, I love translating insights from a really juicy workshop into a narrative, a brand narrative that really, or a set of values that really sticks and has teeth for an organisation. Coming up with a brand narrative or a brand manifesto is really quite, it's challenging, but it's also really creatively rewarding, especially when the client's like, oh my God, wow, like that really, we've never been able to articulate that before, and now it makes us feel really valuable and special because that is us and we're not afraid to own that now. So I do love doing that. Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you from our end, because behind the scenes you've been very supportive, and like some of the best guests we've had on this year has been thanks to you connecting the dots.
Oh, I love it.
You're very generous. I hope 2020 is not about giving less, because you give us a lot and we really appreciate it. So if you're cutting out your giving, cut someone else out.
From a taker.
From a taker?
Well, I just want to say
appreciate
thanks for the AeroPress and the gold-plated straw.
Look, it was a raffle based on
It was
chance. And you won it. So I'd love to take credit for that.
Let's just hope I don't come on next year with a chipped tooth.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect straw hole.
Gold-plated tooth.
That would actually be a fun. There's definitely some merch in that. Anyway, it's a Daily Talk Show. Hi at thedailytalkshow.com is the email address. Tomorrow is New Year's Eve, and we've got Dr. Jason Fox, who's going to be talking all about choosing one word for the year instead of
Gronk it up.
Yeah,
it's gonna be
instead of
great
doing a goal, just a single word.
Amazing.
And potentially he might be dressed as a wizard. So
Yeah.
stay tuned for that. See you guys.
See you guys.
Bye.